So welcome everyone to our webinar today about photo privacy. We have Heather Nickerson here, who is sort of our community go-to expert for all things privacy. She is the creator of our privacy course, but she also has a background within the CIA and is very involved in the topic of privacy and interested in helping us spread awareness about privacy within the photo world. And then sort of more related to how we know Heather, she is the founder of Artifacts, which is a great app for telling the stories behind the things that you have in your home. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Heather to get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Isabel, and welcome everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces. It's always great to have you join us. And for the new folks, welcome. Thrilled you are here to learn about photo privacy. I'm going to do a quick intro, give you some background about why I'm speaking on this topic today. And then I'm going to jump into, I've got a very short presentation for those of you that know me. You know, I like to keep the slides to a minimum, but the data and information to a maximum. So we'll dive into the presentation. At any point, please feel free to ask questions. I believe Isabel will be monitoring the chat, so very happy to take your questions. And Isabel noted there is, the reason we're doing this webinar today is to help bring awareness about the importance of privacy and being a privacy advocate for yourself, your families, your business, and your clients. The photo managers do offer a privacy advocate certificate course, which is, we created it last year after tremendous demand from conference and the keynote that resulted at that conference. So Isabel's going to pop the link into the course in chat. And with that, I want to jump into intros. So again, my name is Heather Nickerson, co-founder and CEO of Artifacts. That's artifcts.com. But I am not here to talk about artifacts today. I am here to talk about privacy, and specifically encourage you all to take a very active role in being privacy advocates. Even if this is the first step today, learning to debunk some of those common photo myths, that's a great first step, and I'm glad you're here. So why am I here, and how did I become a privacy expert? So Isabel noted that I started my career at the Central Intelligence Agency. I was an analyst, and I spent nearly a decade helping to protect secrets and information for the US government. I served multiple tours overseas, including one in Afghanistan, where I was our presidential daily briefer to the commanding general in country, COM-ISAF. I also served for nearly 2 years on an executive order task force during the Obama administration in the White House. From there, I was headhunted out of the CIA to go run and grow a private security firm. In this capacity, I worked with private families, individuals, and Fortune 500 companies across the US and really the world, helping them protect their data privacy, helping them enhance their security, and really helping the families and individuals stay safe online. One of the things I learned during my time running and growing the private security firm was that families and people like us, you, me, everyone, you often think about privacy or data privacy, and it's a very big word, and you think, there is nothing I as an individual can do. And that was one of the first things that when I started working with those private families, I wanted to show there's so much we can do as individuals and as families. So I even authored a book titled Shield Your Privacy. And I can tell you firsthand when not to launch a national book tour. It's a week before a global pandemic. I authored my book. I was set to take off on a book tour across the US, and a week later, COVID started. So I moved everything to a virtual setting and spent a lot of time engaging with folks online of how to protect their privacy. Over the course of kind of my career, I then shifted roles during COVID. I decided to leave the private security firm and launch and start Artifacts for a whole host of reasons, but very thrilled that I did. Through this, I then met Kathy Nelson, CEO of the Photo Managers. We started talking and realized how important privacy is to anyone and everyone dealing with photos. whether you're a consumer of those photos online or hard copy, or you're a business owner and you have a photo managing or photo organizing business. I believe it was 2023, gave the keynote at the Orlando conference all about protecting your privacy. And from there, that's where this program grew out of. That's a very, hopefully, quick overview of why I'm here and how and why we're going to talk about privacy today. So I am going to share my screen and dive right into today's presentation. Again, please feel free to pop questions into chat. And Isabel, if there's a burning question, feel free to jump right in, interrupt. I'm happy to take it. Otherwise, we'll leave time at the end for Q&A. So we're going to be looking at the top 10 myths about photo privacy and specifically how to debunk them. And for those of you who joined us last year for this presentation, there will be some repeat tactics. However, the data is all new and all updated. And I even secured myself at one point researching some of the updated facts and figures. So I will say, hang on, it's going to be a roller coaster of information for the next 30 minutes. There's a lot coming at you, but we're also going to talk about the things you can do and the fact that you do have the power to protect your information. And you have the ability to be a privacy advocate, which is what this is all about. So with that, we're going to debunk the top 10 myths that we have heard over the years about photos and photo privacy. First up, myths 1, 2, and 3. And I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but this is really fun in person when we start showing hands. How often have you heard or have you thought, no one knows me? So really, privacy isn't an issue for me. No one knows me. Bad guys don't know I exist. Or I'm not that important. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a famous athlete. I'm not on the cover of, Time magazine. I'm not that important. Bad guys will never find me. Or no one wants my info. Let's bust those myths. So when we're dealing with privacy, data privacy, photo privacy writ large, a name and email are enough to spoof an email address. With today's AI, artificial intelligence, the bots that are able to use generative AI features, even a clip of you from social media, a video of you, an audio of you, even a photo sometimes that can be animated into a video of you is enough to create a realistic looking spoof or even fake or potentially deep fake of you. There's a lot that people can do with a simple photo, a video, or an audio file. Why do they do these things?
1 second, would you mind just making your presentation full screen?
Oh, oops, of course. Sorry
No
about
worries.
that. Let's go. Of course. Oops. Okay, sorry about that. Better? Okay, thank you, Isabel, for stopping me in that one. I got so excited to talk about privacy. I just started going right away. All right, so again, a name and an email are enough to spoof, or a single photo is enough to spoof, or a single video or audio. So why does this matter? There are bad guys, let's just call them adversaries, but bad guys, adversaries that are out there, and they commit acts of cybercrime to essentially cheat and fraud you or your family or businesses out of money. The average cost of cybercrime to you as a victim, as an individual, not a business, we'll get to that in a little bit, but as an individual, is over $5,000 last year. So if you think about that, a name and an email address, a photo, a video, a bad guy can use that and target your family, target your business, can create even potentially a ransomware issue or ransomware case, and it costs individuals over $5,000. So those are myths 1 through 3 debunked. No one knows me. I'm not that important. No one wants my info. The bad guys are out there and they aren't very discerning. Sure, they would love to get a celebrity or a professional athlete, but those folks probably have teams of individuals who help protect their information. regular Jane Doe, John Smith, you name it, we're here. We don't have cybersecurity teams keeping us safe. So it's really important that even if we think no one knows us, or we think we're not that important, we do understand that very simple information can give the bad guys enough to create or to act and make us victims of cyber fraud or cyber attacks. All right, moving on to myth 4.
One thing, Heather, before you move
Yes.
on, can you just clarify? There was a question in the chat. What does spoof an email address mean?
Oh, great question. So spoofing an email address is when a bad guy, or it doesn't have to be a bad guy anyway, but rarely it's a bad guy, and it looks like the email is coming from you. So you may get an email from bestfriend@gmail.com, and it's your best friend. You think it's your best friend, same first name, same last name, or same first initial, same last name, whatever combination that is. If you were to hover over that little, depending what email browser you're using or program, you hover over the little usually down arrow to see the full details, the metadata, like the details in the email. And you'll see it's not actually coming from bestfriend@gmail.com, but it's coming from, I'm just making this up, cyberhacker101 or gmail.ru or RU is Russia. But you can see the email address is really not from your best friend. But they've been able, by simply having a name and knowing that they use Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or whatever email service you're using, they're able to create an email address. The actual address is it's different. But when when you sign up for an email account, they ask for that first name, last name, or they ask for your details, and then they give you the actual email. Spoofing is a really simple thing that essentially adversaries can do to start engaging in communication. And we read about this all the time when you're reading different articles or hearing news reports about how an individual they thought they were contacted by their loved one, asking, saying, hey, dear grandma, dear grandpa, I'm overseas traveling and my passport and wallet got stolen. Could you please wire me $3,000 for a new plane ticket and hotel costs? And the email looks like it's coming from, favorite grandson at gmail.com. However, it's actually a bad guy. That's how, again, you may think no one knows me, I'm not that important, no one wants my info. But the bad guys, if they're able to get, a couple hundred people every day to click on that link and wire favorite grandson the money for the plane ticket home, they've made 6 figures with very little effort on their part. So that's what spoofing is when the email looks like it's coming from someone that you know or a trusted center, but it's actually not. Kind of the name does not match the actual email address. All right, let's move on to myth 4. This is one I hear all the time when I'm talking with photo managers and organizers and people in, I think, the photo business, or even in families who have hired photo manager, hired you all for your services. It's just a photo. So I've got just a photo up on the screen. If you want to, pop in the chat what you know. This is a photo I took of myself. And for reference, I'm based in Washington, D.C. So what could you tell from this photo? If it's a photo you just saw, say you saw it on Facebook, or you saw it, it was sent around in an email, or you saw it, I don't know, something that I shared online, if I would ever share photos online. But let's pretend I did. What info can you glean from this photo? I'll give you all like 30 seconds or so. What do you see? Or what assumptions can you make? Yeah, resort name, that I'm on vacation, right? I'm not home. I'm on vacation somewhere. I'm at a resort. You now know the resort name, what places I was staying at, other activities. Yep, I'm on vacation. I'm in a tropical place. Yep, these are all great things, right? But it's just a photo. I just popped it up there because I wanted to share with my friends and family. Look, I'm having a great time. Yeah, I might be able to Google Lens or check GPS. Love this. Yes. So just a photo. I love it. Nancy, not home. Rob me. Yes. My home is probably vacant. True to all the above. Now think about this for a second. This is just a photo. Doesn't even have my face in the photo, doesn't have a t-shirt I'm wearing, doesn't have any other details. It's simply a photo of some armbands and a bracelet in a tropical setting. And look at how much you all got out of it in literally about 30 seconds of looking at this photo. So why is it's just a photo one of the biggest myths of all? It's all about the data. And you don't even have access to the actual photo right now. You're just seeing it on my screen. But think about all the data behind this, the metadata, the geolocations, in addition to all the visible data you can see. We talk about locations, names, dates, all that stuff, the travel status, the fact that you guys commented, I'm not home, come rob me. Bad guys can use that data to do harm. And I'm going to call out Kimberly Melton, who's on this call, one of my favorite people, amazing company, Visual Story Media. She posted earlier this year, back to school, she posted a book about Facebook posts and children and parents. And I'm sure you've all seen those posts where a proud parent displays a photo of, Susie or Bobby heading back to school, and they've got that sign in front of them that says, my name is so-and-so, my age is this, my grade is this, I'm going to this school, I want to be this when I grow up, my favorite thing is this. If you're thinking about the risks, right? Like, it's just a photo, but you've basically given, let's just say, a really bad guy, a kidnapper, all the information they possibly need to know. Like, hey, Susie, your mom's called. She asked me to come pick you up. Like, da-da-da. She told me that you love kittens. I've got a brand new kitten for you in the car. I mean, I'm totally making this up, but you can see where this goes, right? It's just a photo, but yet there's so much information in these photos. And when you start seeing like people or families in the photos, there's additional details you can glean and understand. So when you stop and think about the data that photos contain, there's the visual data. What can you see when you look at the photo? But then there's all that data in the background, the metadata. And again, that can get down to geolocation, it can get down to date, time. It's incredible what data photos can contain. So I will just say right here with the myth of it's just a photo, this is where you all, and we dive into this in depth with the Privacy Advocate Program, but this is where you all can take that first step. Even today, if you're sharing photos online publicly, stop and think before you share. What data are you actually sharing out into the world? If you have family who are sharing photos online, and I'll out myself, I've got a teenager at home. I can tell you that I am public enemy number one because she does not have any social media platforms. But my husband and myself, he's also a cybersecurity expert, we don't allow her to have social media because it's not just a photo. There is so much data out there that is contained within a photo. So yes, she may be despondent that she's the only child in her class right now without social media, but I'm okay with that. I want to protect her privacy. But these are all things, again, like we have the ability to choose what we share when it comes to photos and who we share them with. We also have the ability to educate our families. So if you have, children or grandchildren posting photos that give away a lot of information, you can tell them, hey, dear child, dear grandchild, have you thought about this? What are you telling people? You can also, in working with clients, if you're dealing with clients, stop and pause before they share. If you're helping a client organize hundreds of photos or thousands of photos from a wedding, great. Which ones are going to stay private and which ones are okay to publicly share? And can you clean up the data behind the metadata before you share? There's a lot of things you have control over, but I think this is a good example to say it's not just a photo. There's a lot of data in those photos. So as someone who is concerned about privacy, stop and think before you post and share, because every photo is a treasure trove of data. All right, let's jump on to myth 5. This is very close to it's just a photo. I also often hear in the same sentence, it's just a photo and it's just Facebook. Yes. Again, we go back to data. Data, data, data. On Facebook, typically it's public or semi-public. You may share only with friends of friends or with friends. But once you share, this is one thing you have to keep in mind. Once you share, it's beyond your control. Anyone can take a screenshot. Anyone can essentially use or manipulate that photo. And this goes back to the first slide, right, of what bad guys can do, especially with generative AI. And we talk about this. We have a whole separate model in the Privacy Advocate course this year to, discussing AI and generative AI and the risks that it poses to individuals and businesses. But in the wide, wide west, or wild, wild west that is AI, a single photo, a bad guy can use that and alter it. Videos, you can create deep fakes using combinations of videos and photos. And we've probably all heard about this in the news. It's not just limited to, things on social media. But I will say, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or whatever your social media platform is of choice, once it's shared, it is beyond your control. And that's where I think you, again, go back to the original advice, think before you share. What information are you sharing? What data are you sharing? And also the need to consider, what are those platforms doing? There's a saying in the product realm, in the tech space, that if the product is free, you're really the product. So if you're not paying for that latest and greatest software, chances are you really are paying for it just with your data. Facebook, Instagram, a lot of online social media platforms make their money from selling and transacting with your data. And it exposes information to the bad guys. And think about this, right? I'm sure most all of us probably have Facebook pages. Think of the information you see when you go on Facebook. Think about birth announcements. Think about high school reunions, college reunions, family vacations. There's a ton of data you see from photos and posts on Facebook. So again, this is not, there is no big brother when it comes to data and privacy. You, yourself, your families, even with your business, you control what you post and what you share, including to social media platforms. So thinking through in kind of your world, what's okay for you? What do you want to share? What do you not want to share? That's really important. And we discuss in depth in the privacy advocacy course how to set those guidelines and communications expectations with loved ones, family, and clients. All right, let's move on to the next myth. Actually, two myths. Myth 6 through 7. This is similar to myths 1 through 3, but now we're talking about businesses. So for those of you who are business owners, often hear, I have a small business, I'm not a target. Or I don't make that much money, hackers will never go after me. Before we bust these myths, let's just talk about kind of bad guys in the broad scheme of things. They're out to make a quick buck. That really is at the end of the day. They can spend time and money targeting really, really large financial giants. Some of the biggest corporations, from healthcare companies like Blue Cross Blue Shield, which has been victim of several attacks over the years, to Target, to LinkedIn, you name it. But all of those big companies have very robust cybersecurity teams. They have entire teams of people searching and being proactive about this. As a small business owner, it's probably you plus 1, 2, or 3 others. The bad guys know this. They know that they may not get as much money from attacking a small business. However, typically the cyber and privacy controls are not nearly as robust as a big business. So the first stat has not changed. This has remained constant year over year, but 46% of cyber attacks targeted small businesses last year. That's nearly 50%. And the crazy thing is, you don't typically hear about the small business attacks in the news, right? You hear about when Target has been hacked, or you hear about, when a university system has been hacked. You don't hear about it when your local business around the corner has been hacked. And that's probably twofold. One is, I'm sure, reputation. You don't want, as a small business owner, your reputation is everything. So publicizing it, you're not going to run to the media and say, hey, guess what? We were breached and we had a data spill or we had a hack. The other thing too is that it's not really headline gripping news. But the fact of the matter is that nearly half of cyber attacks target small businesses. And this is the statistic that I had to go back and double check and check multiple sources because I didn't believe it at first. But the average cyber attack cost to a small business last year rose from just under $6,000 to $25,000. So it's almost quintupled in the past year over year, the cost of the attack to a small business. And this is, again, I think part of it is we are in an ever increasing digital and hyper connected world. And the bad guys know that. If they can attack us and either hold our business for ransomware, spoof our business name and emails and accounts, take over one of our social media pages and start, selling fake products off of our Facebook pages. There's so many things, especially bad guys could do, but they know they can make money, and they know small businesses are apt to pay to get back their data because we rely on it. And we typically don't have teams of people who are working on our end to protect it. But that's, myth 6 and 7. I have a small business, I'm not target. I don't make that much money. Maybe you're not making, $1 million or hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bad guy, that doesn't matter. Again, even if the bad guy can get $5, $10, $15, $25,000 per business, they can make a lot of money really fast. And that's a scary thing. And this is where, on the business side, having really robust policies and procedures in place, understanding what risks posed, like what risks there are for the type of business you're in, and then having routine training for your employees, having regular conversations and just really good security practices is really key. And we have an entire module in the privacy advocacy training program dedicated to keeping your small business safe. I'm going to quickly dive into chat, just make sure I'm not missing any questions before I go on to the next one. Isabel, if I am, please let me know.
Let's see. If someone posts a photo of you in a group photo in their Facebook page, can you blur your face?
On their Facebook page, if they tag you, you can essentially ask to be removed from the tag. So not tagged in that photo or in that post. You can't go in and alter their photo that they've posted. And that's what we mean by once it's been shared, it's out there. And that's the frustrating part. And that's where having that conversation, letting your family and friends and colleagues know what is okay for you to share and not share is really important.
Yeah, and there's been a little bit of a conversation specifically about that in the chat where, what do you do? You can somewhat control what you post about your own children online, but
Yes.
there's community events and other areas of life where your child could be photographed and then that photo could end up on the internet somewhere. How do you control that, with sports events, school events, things like that.
Yep.
So there's a little bit of a discussion about the fact that, that's hard to control. You can do your best to educate other parents and let them know what, you want, what your expectations are. But Sue said it's almost like an illusion of control because you can't fully control it. There's so much you can do, but
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
that's very
other
true.
people have the free will to do what they want with their own photos.
And that's, again, I think, where educating your own family and then knowing what you can and can't do. So on what you can do is, if it's a community sports page or a team page, typically sports teams, summer camps, even schools nowadays will have you sign a waiver to allow them to use your image in social media or in their website posts. I will admit, I do not grant authorization for my daughter's school, her camps, or other activities to use her image in social or in their email marketing. And in fact, when her school first did this, even before COVID, they didn't have an option to opt out. They only had the option to opt in. So you can imagine the response I sent back to the school, stating that I do not grant permission. And in the future, it'd be great to have an opt-out option because I don't plan on ever opting in. And we were able to, upon educating the school, we were able to get that change for that instance. If a photo is posted and it's part of a group you're part of, like a sports league, or if you're part of a book club or whatever it happens to be, you can always reach out to the individual who posted, or the association, the group, and ask them to remove the photo of you in it. So you do not give your permission for them to use your image. Technically, they could decide that there's no law in effect that at least in the US, unless it's California, New York, I want to say Delaware, but especially California and New York. Those are the two states where we have the strongest and most robust privacy protections. But in most of the US, there's no law requiring them to take down that photo. But at a goodwill, typically if it's a group that you belong to, they will take it down. The other thing you can do, again, this is part of educating your family, educating your loved ones. having this conversation, and we know that they are in control. And I'll share it. I'll share a funny story. I wrote about it in the last chapter in my book. But my daughter at the time was 5 years old, and she was at a bonfire kind of like party with some of her friends, and her friend's mom was going to take a photo of her and her friend in front of the fire with s'mores, whatever. And my daughter was like, "Wait a sec, are you posting this to social, like to Facebook?" And the friend's mom kind of laughed and was like, "Oh yeah, like da da da." And my daughter's like, "Oh no, I'm not allowed to be in any photos on Facebook." And she turned her back, which I thought was hysterical. Like to hear my daughter tell the story, I'm dying of laughter. The friend's mom, like they get back from the beach and like she calls me that night, they're doing a sleepover. She's like, "You would never believe what your daughter did today." And I'm laughing and she tells the story. And I'm like, "Great, that's awesome. That's what we have these conversations in our household, which I can tell you makes for great evening dinner conversations. But this is the part where, again, letting people know what you do have the ability to make very conscious decisions when it comes, I think, to your photo and your image and your likeness. And it's just, it's being aware. And I saw in the chat earlier that, someone's daughter is on vacation. She's posting photos real time. Like there's a great conversation starter right there. Like, dear daughter, like, I know you want to share, but can we talk about this? Like, imagine the risks that you're presenting for you and your family. And I recognize not everyone's going to listen, but I think creating the awareness is what's really critical. Understanding that, again, we do a lot of what's up there on us, we have put out there ourselves. And it's really hard to get it back once it's out, which is going to lead us to our next myth. It's okay to share my password, my family, my photo manager, my client. I think especially when it comes to photos, there are so many different software programs and apps. Everything from helping you dedupe or get rid of duplicates to helping you touch up images to helping you. I even saw one the other day that makes photos like talk, which is just crazy to me. And sometimes we may, as a family, you may open up one account and kind of share it around with everyone, share the love. But what's wrong with this is that nearly 100%, just over 97%, nearly 100% of cyber crimes or hacks or data spills or breaches are caused by human error. And it's not that we as humans have malintent. We're not out there to hurt other people, especially our loved ones. But mistakes happen. We slip up. We've now shared that password to that photo site 24 times. And maybe not everyone we're sharing it with is using a password manager, or they don't have good cyber hygiene. They're keeping it on a little, like sticky note on their desk, or they're keeping it in a little notes field on their phone. Whatever it happens to be, someone could gain access to the password. Or if you're accessing, say you're using, we'll talk about someone next, but you're on public Wi-Fi and you log into that account to view the photos, and there's a bad guy on that public Wi-Fi system. These are all things where you can expose accounts and photo collections and others to inadvertent cyber crime attacks, hacks, data breaches, or spills by sharing passwords, by sharing accounts. So really, the best advice here is don't create a situation where you don't have to have one. For any password, it should always be your own unique password. And we dive into this in depth in the privacy advocacy course, but ideally that password is a strong password and you're not sharing it. And what I mean by a strong password is a password that has 18 to 26 characters and includes one uppercase, one lowercase, one number, one special character at least. And there are ways, if you're thinking that's just so much, it's overwhelming, you can use password managers to help keep track of it all. But really, it's not okay to share passwords with families, with clients, even with your other photo managers. Every password you have access to should be unique and should be yours and really should be a strong password. That's one of the best ways to cut down on cybercrime, especially when it comes to photo sharing or photo editing or whatever you're doing with your photos online. All right. Jumped ahead a little bit. Myth number 9 is I don't need a strong password. My password is 8 letters and numbers, and that's good enough. Like we were talking about earlier, strong passwords are critical in keeping you safe and protecting your photos online. especially if you're using cloud storage or editing or any type of online activity with your photos. Ensure you have a strong password. I often hear, well, I've got 8 letters and numbers, and that's enough. I don't need to add in special characters. I don't need to make it 18. That's just obscene. Why would it ever have to be that long? Well, it used to be back in the day, an 8-character password of letters and numbers could take about 5 minutes for a bad guy to hack. It now takes a hacker using AI technology 37 seconds to hack that password. That's why a strong password is so critical. Strong passwords take on average 400 trillion years to hack. So think about that. 40 seconds versus 400 trillion years. Again, this is why strong passwords are absolutely critical to keeping your information safe and secure, especially when it comes to your photos. All right, you guys are ready for the last myth? I alluded to it earlier, but it's public Wi-Fi is safe. If you're going to take, well, I'm going to say one thing. If you take a couple things away from this class, one is strong passwords. 2, it's not just a photo. It's a treasure trove of data. And 3, please, 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 please do not use public Wi-Fi. Public Wi-Fi is not safe. What you see on the screen is a screenshot from my phone I took at conference in 2023. And I'm not going to name any names, but you can see that the name of my Wi-Fi network was Save Your Photos Month. And we, sure enough, had several requests to join my Wi-Fi network. Seemed like a pretty safe thing to do if you're a photo manager's conference. Bad guys, the same way you can spoof an email address, you can on your phone use your personal hotspot if you're a bad guy and name it local coffee shop around the corner, or airport terminal A, or hotel name lobby. Add a little underscore 5G. Now it seems like it's super fast free Wi-Fi. Who isn't sold? And then you can sit there and let all the requests come in. And you can say accept, accept, accept. And if you log into public Wi-Fi that really isn't, well, a known public Wi-Fi, you think you're logging on to the hotel lobby's public Wi-Fi, but really it's the bad guy who's just used the same name and added 5G after it, or whatever you want to add after it. If you log on to their Wi-Fi, they can observe all of your actions. They could be logging your keystrokes, so you're typing in email addresses and passwords that's being recorded. They can watch what you view, watch what you download. It's really the sky's limit. And this is the treasure chest for a bad guy, is getting you to log into their private network when you think you're logging into public Wi-Fi. So we dive deep into this in the class about how to avoid this, what you can do. I will say if you are on the go and you travel a lot, using your personal hotspot is the best. All of our phones now have these hotspots. You can toggle the switch, turn it on, use yours. It is the way to go. Much, much safer than public Wi-Fi. Because public Wi-Fi, you have no control on who is on that network and who owns that network. And especially if you're going to be sending sensitive photo data back and forth, or videos or audio, please do not use public Wi-Fi. That is one of the best things you can possibly do to keep yourself safe online. So I know that was a lot of information crammed into about 30 minutes. I'm going to stop here for questions, comments, and I'll take it from there. Isabel, if you want to, I'll also open up chat. Stop share.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you, Heather. We have lots of questions, so let's get started. Is sharing pictures through Apple Photo Stream safe? This person says that their sister and her husband put a lot of pictures up, and they send an invite to the folder they created to share photos.
Yeah, so those types of photo sharing programs, like Apple's photo sharing, Google has Google Photos. I also see things about Nix Play and other photo frames. If you're sharing to kind of those closed groups, on the whole, it's typically safe to share. What you want to ensure, though, is that the software has been updated. So if you're using a physical product like a photo frame, make sure the software has been updated for whatever the current version is. If you are sharing to a group like Apple or Google Photos or any other photo type software, ensure you are privately sharing. I forget which photo manager it was, but at conference, someone came up to me this past year and told essentially a horror story where it involved, I think, son, daughter-in-law, wedding photos. But I think one of them went in and inadvertently made the setting public, which then essentially pushed all the photos out when they intended for them to be private. So just understand that there are settings in those programs. You want to ensure that they are set to as private as it can be to share with that group. Typically, when you're sharing through like a private photo sharing or organizing or storage site, they'll have to validate their email to log in and to view. So if you're getting the request to view, but you have to log in, that's a great sign. That's a very, very high chance it truly is private and viewable only to that small group. But just double check what the settings are. Double check that they are private or to invited viewers only, whatever that terminology is. It varies across different platforms. And then if you're using a like physical product like a photo frame or a memory cube, make sure the software is up to date because that will affect the security of it.
Speaking about sort of photos taken at events, some large events say that by attending, you authorize use of your images on social media platforms. Is there any way to revoke? Sorry, is there any way to revoke permission in these occasions?
Unless they give you the option to revoke, typically not. I've been now at a couple of different ball games in DC, and they're using a new software where they scan the stadium. And if you kind of scan the QR code they put up on the screen, it gives them essentially the ability to like include you in the photo shot, and you can download the photo as well. They also, in that same software they're using, they allow you to say like opt out, like blur out my image, my face. So I always scan and then opt out. It really depends on what the software is, what the program is, and kind of what the terms and conditions are of attending the event. And this is where we dive into this in I think that's the second module of the privacy efficacy course. Terms and conditions really matter. You have to understand what you're essentially signing up for, be it on the software side, the hardware side, or even attending events in person. And if you're really concerned about it, talk with one of the organizers. Ask to view the photos beforehand or ask. I mean, there's a lot of, I think this is where I think because we are so used to everything just being digital. And I think when it comes to privacy, we kind of think, well, there's something I can do. We're still humans. We can have conversations. It doesn't hurt to reach out and ask someone. The answer may be no, but who knows, by asking, you may prompt them to rethink or reevaluate what you're doing. So I hope that helps.
And then a really good one, which is how do you balance reasonable caution without being paranoid?
That is a good question. And we talk about this in depth in the course. And what we like to say is in the security world, there's kind of a continuum, right? And it's super safe, private, secure. And then there's convenient. And most people fall somewhere in the middle. This is where you've got to figure out what is right for you and your family and your business. And every person is going to be different. And I'll share my husband, myself, we fall on different, not ends of the spectrum. We're both kind of probably more closer to the security and privacy than we are in the convenience factor. And I think all of our kids would tell you we're like way over here in the security and privacy if you ask them. But there's small things, right? My husband is a tech guru. I mean, he's cybersecurity nerd. Like he's Q from James Bond, right? So he bought a Tesla when they first came out. All the kids will tell you, I refuse to drive this car. I absolutely hate the car. It's beautifully designed, but it collects all your data. And one of our biggest arguments in our household is how on earth are you okay owning and driving a Tesla when it is literally collecting your data to train its algorithms every time you get into that car? Like, you're a cybersecurity nerd. Like, what are you thinking? And this is an example where on everything else, we are as locked down can be. But oh my gosh, that Tesla came out and my husband went from here, safe, secure, private to whoop, convenient. So these are again the conversations I think all of us have to have. They're decisions we have to make. But this is where I think it's that whole, what is it? An ounce of knowledge is pound of cure. I'm probably getting that saying wrong, but this is where knowing what's at stake, knowing what's being collected, knowing what you can and can't do, can help you make an informed decision. So for me, I don't drive the Tesla. I even don't like riding in it. And if we ride somewhere together in it, I refuse to let him put our destination in his little like Tesla directions thing. Like, no way, no how. So these are, again, choices we make. So, and I think it's just that whole, you've got to, if you understand what information or what data is at stake, especially again, when it comes to photos and videos, like understanding that, have the conversation with your family, express your concerns, and then come up with where it feels right for you, and know that it may shift from situation to situation, and that's okay. The intent here is not to tell everyone that you have to be completely locked down and you can never post anything in social media and you can't ever share a photo. We know that's not realistic. For some people, that's their happy spot, and that's great. But we know it's not for everyone. So you just have to, the more you know, the better of a decision you can make. And then continue to rethink it and readjust it as technology changes, as the risks change. But I think really the knowledge is what's really important there.
And how can you remove metadata from pictures before sharing them anywhere?
So I am not a photo manager, so I don't want to misspeak here, but I believe in most, like on your iPhone, I can go in and kind of clear some of those fields. Like I can turn location off, I can turn off other things. I can, what I've heard from other photo managers, sometimes you help clients add metadata, like you're adding names to the photos. And especially if you're working with a family historian or a genealogist, you're adding first name, last name, date of birth, like whatever that nomenclature is. So there are ways within the device you're taking the photo on, you can limit what data is being collected or assigned to that photo at that time. And then there's also ways for you to go in and edit. I would say definitely speak to a photo manager specifically about like what technology and what platform for the most precise answer. But I know that with my iPhone, I can control some of the settings, and I have those all set to as private as they can be.
And we have several questions here about passwords. So the first one is, what are your thoughts about the password managers built into web browsers?
The ones built into web browsers, I'm not a huge fan of. Oftentimes those may be free. And again, if the product is free, you're probably the product. The one free password manager I do fully endorse, and I should say, when I give these recommendations of what I use or what others use, I have no affiliation whatsoever with any of these products. I make no commission, I get no payments, I get absolutely nothing. It's just based on my knowledge over time, what we use as a family, as a business, but also what other cybersecurity industry experts are currently using and recommending, since we're still very close to that space. So on the free version, if you're a Mac-based, Mac Pass, they have a fabulous password manager. There's no bells and whistles, like you're not getting a free VPN with it. You're not getting, it's a basic password manager, but it's a really good option if you're looking for something free and you're on a Mac-based system. Paid versions, personally, we use Keeper, Keeper, Keeper Security. A lot of cybersecurity professionals are moving over to Keeper, partly because of the ease of use of having multiple accounts kind of under one master account, either for businesses, or in our case, we have 5 kids total. They live literally in all corners of the world. And we no longer have to get asked about a Netflix password, or I forgot my password for, my voter registration, whatever it happens to be. It's all in Keeper. They all have their own account, but then we can also have shared access to passwords that we all use. So for us, that's one of our favorites. There's Dashlane, there's OnePass, there's 1Password. There's even LastPass. I know some people are hesitant to use LastPass because they were breached a while back. One thing I want to mention is that, yes, they were breached, but because all the data was fully encrypted end to end, the bad guys got a bunch of gobbledygook, like ones and zeros. So even if you're using LastPass, that's still a great solution. It's much better than using Post-it notes to keep track of your passwords, or using the same password for every account you have.
And this was specifically asked, is Norton Password Manager safe?
On the whole, I've not done a deep dive into them, but I suspect, yes, it's safer than not using a password manager.
And what about computer generated passwords?
Yes, that's a great way to go because it ensures they are random. It's not you adding on a couple of digits or an exclamation point or an asterisk here and there. You can also set the length of the computer generated passwords. You can say, I want 32 characters, and I want it to contain these, like by uppercase, lowercase. You can select all that, hit generate. Most all password managers, if you don't like the password they generate for you, click generate again, and you're good to go. You can pick another one. It's a really, I think sometimes even as humans, we have tendencies to create patterns even when we think we aren't creating patterns. So if you are comfortable and you're able to, like with technology ease of use, like generate that password from your password manager, save it in your password manager, that's great. It's a good way to ensure it's random as random can be. It's not us thinking we're being random when there's really some underlying pattern there.
And could you repeat what you consider a strong password?
Strong password is 18 to 26 characters. It could certainly be more than 26, but the minimum is 18 to 26 characters. And it's one uppercase, one lowercase, at least one number, and then at least one special character. And it could be more than one of each. I mean, it has to be if it's 18 characters at least, but it's having at least that complexity. And a strong password also is not used and reused for every account. You have a unique strong password for every account you're accessing.
And how do you best manage using Wi-Fi on an airplane where you can't use your hotspot?
So please do, if you have to use Wi-Fi on an airplane, you can use a VPN to access it. If you aren't using a VPN, or please don't be accessing sensitive business accounts on essentially what is public Wi-Fi on an airplane. This is where I think, like us, we have to make these decisions. What really has to get done in the next hour and a half I'm in flight? What can wait until I land? What can I do before I go? What can I do after the fact when I get there? The difference is I do want to note, like on an airplane, it's technically not, well, I guess some of them are now free Wi-Fi and it is totally public. If you're still, depending what system the airplane is using and how they're accessing the network, this gets a little complicated. Are they using satellites? There's a whole host of different methods. I think most airlines, major airlines, are moving towards Starlink. They are going to be making it free. So it's just that whole, just again, be aware, what system are they using? How do you access it? Yeah, I like what Marcy says. Flying times reserved for watching movies or reading. Too risky otherwise. Yeah, and that's the boat I fall into. It's that whole choices. Or clean up your photo library. Yes, yes. And then is Starlink a good or bad alternative? It's typically not. You typically don't have an alternative on an airplane. You can't really choose, like, I want to use Starlink or I want to use, whatever the other option is. It's whatever the airplane's providing you, which again, like you typically, it's hard to find out exactly what it is. The only reason I mentioned Starlink is that's been in the news is a lot of airlines are touting it as a massive upgrade. This is the whole, I think someone asked about the security, privacy, paranoia side. For me, when I go back and think about like who owns Starlink, like it's, the airlines are offering it for free. Like it just, to me, that's, again, if it's free, you're the product. I go back and look at who owns it, what type of big data they're involved with. And that's just really, it's a personal choice, but.
And talking about the Tesla example that you shared, when you're syncing your phone to your car, I assume any car, is that the same thing as the Tesla example? Is it collecting your data?
It depends how your car is. It depends basically on the operating systems within the car. One thing I will note about rental cars, if you're in a rental car and you decide you want to plug in your phone to get GPS directions, you are essentially connecting your phone to any other phone or device that's plugged into that car. You have no idea if the person before you had a virus or malware on their device. You have no idea if a bad guy installed a program into that rental car to download your data off your phone. So if you are traveling in a car that is not yours, please do not connect your phone to the car. If you need directions, that's great. Turn on Google Maps or Apple Maps, whatever direction program you're using on your phone, just don't plug it in. Have your phone, put it on audio, on speakerphone, and have it like tell you the directions as you drive. But please do not plug in the phone. If you have to plug in the phone, that's where we talked about at a conference, had a good laugh, data condoms, but they're USB essentially connectors where it prevents your phone from becoming infected with whatever's on that car system. We can pop a link into chat there. Same thing with airplanes. Oftentimes you'll plug your phone into charge. So you're now with a physical connection, connecting your device, your phone, to whatever was plugged into that back of the seat before you got on the plane as well. So there's things like that where you stop and think about, like, what are you connecting? Why are you connecting it? Do you have to connect it? And do you know who in the world was last here that did the same exact thing? Were they a good guy? Were they a bad guy? It's really hard to know that. So a really good kind of rule of thumb, or kind of, we joke with our kids, but it's like, this does not get left out of your sight, and you don't plug it in anywhere that you don't have full control over.
And I'll share a funny little story. The data condom sort of piece has become a household name for my family. It's always we always seem to forget it. And so it's like, shoot, we forgot our data condom. So it's, did we remember to bring the converter so we can plug it right into the wall?
Yep.
That happens pretty often here.
I'm gonna just pop a link into for people who are like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna pop a link into here. I have not reviewed this product. It's what came up when I quickly went to Amazon. We do have one that's been vetted and reviewed. This is a really long link. Vetted and reviewed as part of our privacy advocacy program. But it's really just a USB connector. So it keeps, again, what's on here safe from whatever someone else plugged in, be it rental car, airplane, even hotel rooms now. Some of them, when I was in recently, had you plugged your phone into the lamp to charge. I'm like, why on earth am I plugging my phone into a lamp? So.
Yeah. And if anyone's wondering, because I had this question originally, was, well, what about my lamp in my own bedroom at home? And doesn't matter there because that's your own.
Yeah, you control that. Like, I think anything within your house and your space, again, just understand like what potential data or connections there are. And I think Marcy made a comment way earlier in chat, and it was really funny. It made me smile, Marcy, but it was anything that's smart equals surveillance or something along those lines. Hopefully I didn't misspeak too much, but it's really like all these smart appliances, they all have software. They all need to be updated regularly. And if you're plugging stuff in, chances are there's communication both ways. So that's where it's just, if you control it, it's much easier in your home. If you're on the road or in a hotel, you have no control over it. And anything smart is certainly at risk for being hacked or compromised.
Excellent. We have 2 more questions, but I'm not sure if you have time for those, Heather, or if you want to wrap up here before.
Yeah, I'm happy to stay on and answer the 2 questions. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So the one is sort of, I think, a common one for a lot of people is sometimes you'll have conversations about, for example, cat training in your car. And then when you get home, you get ads about cat trainers. Is this a case of malware on our phones, or is this a feature of modern phones?
It's not malware on your phones. It's simply, again, if the product is free, and all of our search engines, Google, Safari, you name it, unless we're using like DuckDuckGo or others. I think there's Mulholland right now is another one coming up on the scene, but like DuckDuckGo is a great privacy first search browser. But if you're using Google, if you're using Safari, if you're using kind of the common ones, if your phone's on, it's always on, it's always listening. And this is where, again, smart technology does kind of equate to surveillance a little bit. So you don't have a virus, your phone is not infected, but it probably some way, shape, or form picked up either what you were last typing in the search box, or if you've got it, you think about it, right? Like we can say SIRI and she comes on. We can say ALEXA, she comes on. These devices are always on, always listening, passively listening. And how they make a lot of their money is through marketing and advertising. And there's a whole right now in Europe, Google is being taken to court, and it looks like the European Commission, the European government may actually win, with Google being a massive monopoly for advertising and digital marketing. And it's very true. It's, as a small business owner, I can attest to that. You can't do essentially anything without going through Google when it comes to digital marketing or search engine optimization or even keywords. But that's how those search engines make their money, is when they hear a keyword, be it cat training or Christmas shopping, or, my husband and I were discussing an Alaskan cruise, and sure enough, I now get all these things about Alaska that pop up into my different feeds. Like it's what it is. So this is where, if you ever need to have a truly sensitive conversation, turn these things off, turn off your other connected devices, unplug them. Back at the agency, I was actually on a team that had special permission to carry around, back in the day, a BlackBerry. But we had these pouches called Faraday pouches. And you can Google these, but they're pouches you can buy on Amazon for $10, $12, but they block the transmission of radio frequency signals. So even though we were allowed to carry our phones into non-secured spaces, we had to have them in Faraday pouches. And that's even a great kind of best practice when you're traveling overseas. If you're taking one of these or a tablet with you and you're worried about potential surveillance or just compromised communications, pop your device into a Faraday pouch. It's a great way to prevent transmissions back and forth. And you can see these sometimes like marketed as like travel wallets or travel pouches, but it is like, when you think about it, like our devices, they're always on, they're always connected, and they collect a lot of data on us.
And I think that sort of is a great segue into the final question, which is, do you see the trends in the industry going in the right or the wrong direction? For example, do you see us moving more towards a world where people start cracking down on their privacy and respecting others, lawmakers protecting privacy and so on, or moving more in the direction of, this is just the way things are, privacy is a thing of the past, and if you want to participate in the modern society, then you just have to accept it?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. I don't have a short answer for it. My answer is, it depends a little bit on where you live in the world. So Canada, the European Union, New Zealand, Australia, they are all taking very proactive steps and measures to protect individuals' privacy. And we dive into this in the privacy advocacy course. Module 1 is kind of we start with looking at kind of where in the world are we. Canada and the EU have two of the most stringent national level privacy rules and regulations. And they are taking companies to court, such as Google, that don't abide by those rules and regulations. The US, we have no federal overarching protection for individuals for privacy and security. We now have, it used to be 5 states, we're now up to 20 states that have at least something on the books as far as privacy rules and regulations, but that something is typically relating to how, or the timelines companies have to notify you if you've been victim of a data breach or data spill. It's not robust in any sense of the imagination. For me, when I look at kind of where we're going, my biggest fear is what's happened with AI. We have essentially the horses out of the barn and running, at the pre-mistakes, and there's no getting that horse back into the barn. We do not have any type, I think, of idea even of what can and will happen with the use of AI. We're seeing examples, like I think terrifying examples of deep fakes. There's in California right now, the California state government is trying to pass, it'll be the first law in the country to make creating deep fakes a punishable offense by law. And it stems from what happened to a series of middle schools where middle school boys were creating deep fakes of their female middle school girls in pornographic and sexually explicit posts. And they were using photos of those girls that they posted to their own Instagram or Facebook or even the school webpage. And they were being able to alter those photos into sexually explicit scenarios using generative AI. So I think for me, when I look at it, and this is why we're so strict with our kids, we're strict, but we educate them. But it's scary. You know, we think about how we grew up and kind of what the risks were with our information, our privacy. We think about this current generation. I will say there are some small things that make me smile, where you may have read about in the papers or heard about news programs. Some of Gen Z is going back to old technology. They're tired of being always on. They're, you know, buying up old vintage cameras that aren't digital. They are getting themselves off of Snapchat and off of Instagram. They're going back to like old flip phones, which I think is fabulous. But I don't think that's a mass movement by any extent of the sense. But I think people are starting to be more aware of it. I don't think there's enough kind of education at all levels to be fully aware. I often joke that if Artifacts takes off one day, nothing would make me happier than turning the company over for someone else to go run. And I would start a privacy nonprofit and spend all day educating the next generation, because that's really, it is so critical to know, what you don't know, and what you can do about it. And that's really, I think there's a lot to be done. So that's probably a very long answer. Bottom line, it depends on part and where you live, and also on part of what we all do. Like, again, we are the ones, like, we humans are posting and sharing the information. We want everyone to know what we had for dinner, where we went, what we're doing, what status symbol we have. And social media knows that. They design these programs to kind of play into like our human nature. And then, of course, advertisers, marketers, and then the bad guys all jump on that train. So there's a lot we can do. I don't want to have anyone leave this feeling like, oh my gosh, there's nothing I can do. I feel overwhelmed. No, there's a ton you can do. And we dive deep into that in the course. But I think for things to change in a very positive way, we have to be very conscious consumers of the technology, how we use it, and then what we think is okay. You know, we can all write into our locally elected officials and urge for change. We can, you know, urge at the national level. There's a lot we can do, but until that happens, it's a little bit of status quo. And then kind of the big guys, I think a lot of big corporations, they make a lot of money off of our data. So until there's an economic disincentive for that, I don't think that's going to change. So.
Thank you so much, Heather. This was excellent. And as you said, yes, we're not trying to scare people here. We're really trying to spread awareness about the importance of just being aware of what your photos tell about you by sharing them, and help you provide awareness to the other people in your life, because the fact that, you know, we're 100 people that are here talking about this, but there are a lot more people that need to know about this. And so this recording will be on our YouTube channel, and you're welcome to share with anyone and everyone that you'd like to. I'm personally going to be sharing it on my Facebook page to share with my friends and family. But in the meantime, if you'd like to get started in a deep dive on privacy while we're editing this recording and adding it to our YouTube channel, I did just want to mention again that we do have the Privacy Advocate course. It's an in-depth course on everything that we've talked about today, plus more. I think between all of the videos, it's about 4.5 hours of instruction. And so it's a great primer, but also a great sort of in-depth, what can you do for your own business? How can you help your clients? And what can you do with your own data, with your own accounts to protect your own privacy? So thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate your time, and we will see you at the next one.